And on this side, Avishai Ehrlich, who's a professor emeritus from Tel Aviv University. He's a political sociologist, and if you really want a great introduction to him and his considerable accomplishments as an academic and as a public intellectual, particularly on the Israel-Palestine file, look no further than the recent book, The World of Avishai Ehrlich, which contains excerpts of his work, as well as testimonials from our own Leo Panich and others about his many contributions. We turn now to our last contributor, Avishai.
Thank you. Let me add my little pixel to the picture of how I met Leo, like everybody else. I met Leo on the roof of Afsil House, which was a student dormitory located between Fleet Street, where you could buy tomorrow's newspaper the day before, and the meat market, where you could buy half a pig or half a cow as a cooperative among students, and we used to divide it and have it for cheap. I wasn't a student of Leo, I was a student with Leo. And we came to the LSE, and this was a very optimistic time, probably unfounded optimism. I came to London for the academic year, which started '68, having left Israel after a war in '67, in which I participated, and was more than glad to leave, as I felt that Israel has changed by this war. I managed to be in May '68 in Paris, and then went to visit people in Munich, where there were demonstrations against the Shah with the German SDS, and I met Rudi Dutschke, and then arrived in London, and all have erupted at the LSE that year, and it was closed after a short while. And this was the time of the demonstrations against Vietnam, where Clinton said he participated and did not inhale. And a few months after the year started, I went to get married to my girlfriend in the United States. And wherever I went, the world was on fire. So when I came back, my thesis was dictated by my experience, and it was the student movement, which was a social movement at that time, probably one of the first. And it was the time within the student movement where feminism was also making itself felt a bit, and black power. But I came as an older student. I was already 27 and a political activist in Israel. I was in the Communist Party, and I was bugged by a certain question. Having come from a place that had one Communist Party, landed in London, and with all the demonstrations, I got all the leaflets, started to sort them out, and found out, believe me, that there were 68 Trotskyist organizations, each of them claiming to be the Revolutionary Party, and about 34 Maoist organizations. So the thing that puzzled me was the meaning of poly-Leninism. What happens if there is a tiny mobilization and about 100 organizations who never managed to recruit more than few people over the years that they were agitating, all jumped into this movement and all have cutthroat competition. Right? So, I know a lot about the party, the so-called Revolutionary Party, and I can say a lot of things not in favor of that kind of organizations, right? When I was in London, and having been already an anti-Zionist then, I founded together with several people, one of whom is someone that Hillary mentioned later in the meeting, yesterday in the meeting, Moshe Nachover, who was expelled 2 days ago from the Labour Party for being an anti-Semite. Right? Basically the founder of an anti-Zionist organization, Israel, to which I belonged as well. And we, in the atmosphere of these times, we started to agitate to all these about 100 organizations about the Middle East, about Israel, from a critical point of view. And did something else. We found in London a lot of left-wing or revolutionary Arabs from all over the Middle East and North Africa. And a couple of years later, we started a journal which lasted for at least 12 years, called Hamsin. And the motto of this Hamsin was, "A hot wind is blowing in the Middle East." Hamsin means in Arabic 50 degrees, right? Hot wind. So you can see also from the name and the motto that we were optimists at the time. I said to you just before I came on the podium, just imagine to have a conference under this title in Syria today. Right? You're pacifists? How about Iraq, Libya, Yemen, and the whole Middle East? Right? I have a lifelong friendship with Leo and Melanie, and I cherish this friendship. They helped me also in difficult times in my life. When Leo became chair here, he invited me to come here to lecture, and I spent 2 years here lecturing, among other things, about the Middle East. The other part was in the sociology department. And I want to say something about this, which Leo may not even know, you see. When I came here, not everyone was happy that he invited me. There were some people who objected to me teaching. One of them chased me for the rest of my life afterwards. He was here before me. He was a professor at Tel Aviv University, Itamar Rabinovich. He was later Israel's ambassador to the United States and was the rector of Tel Aviv University. And having defied him and invited me and not somebody else that he wanted to send instead, when I came back to Tel Aviv University, he tried to deny me the right to teach, the freedom of teaching, which the sociology department had approved of, and wrote then to the dean of social science in Tel Aviv that Ehrlich cannot teach about Middle East history because he's a sociologist. right? The dean called me and said, what shall we do? He was in favor of my teaching. So I said, what about calling the course that I'm teaching the sociology of the conflict, the Israeli-Palestine? And if it has sociology, then it's sociology, it's okay. So you had to swallow this, and I taught this course for about 15 years. I want to say something about this course because the topic is about education for democracy. I believe that what a political person should do when one teaches is to politicize. It got me into quite a lot of trouble because unlike Weber, I'm not for value neutrality. Right? I do go first thing in class and I say, look, I'm a horrible revolutionary Marxist and so on. Be aware of this, but you should be more aware of those who say that they are neutral. Because I put my cards on the table, you should be careful what you buy from me and check. What I don't like is to do what we used to call a BBC. To do a BBC is on the one hand, on the other hand, and never pass any judgment and so on. To teach about the conflict, both here, when I came here I also gave this course, and about 1/3 or even more of the class were Jews who came and thought that it's going to be an easy course because they know all about it. In the first class, 2 Japanese students came to me and 1 Afghani, and they said they all seem to know so much about the Middle East. We have no chances. We probably cannot continue. And I said, they don't know anything. They think they know. Stay, do what I tell you to read, and see how you do. Half of the Jews left the class after 2 more lessons because it wasn't what they expected. The Afghani became one of my best students and also one of the Japanese. Because they didn't know anything, they just did what they were told to do, with no prejudice. The others found it difficult to swallow. Because the first thing that they had to learn is about settler societies, which they didn't like. They expected to find that in the Bible it says that the land belongs to us. And that was not the narrative that they got. That got me a lot in trouble. Can you imagine doing this in Israel as well? Right? But I managed to teach at Tel Aviv University this course of the conflict for 15 years. I regard this one of my biggest achievements because I'm stopped sometimes in Tel Aviv and someone who is in his 50s or something like this tells a young person who goes with him, you see, he was my teacher. And all I know about Israel comes from him. I said, not all, right? But some of the things, and I hope that I put you on the right foot. By the way, where are you now? On the left or on the right? In Israel, we have a problem because left and right are not defined in terms of social issues, but are defined with regard to attitude to the occupation. If you say that Israel was born in sin, then you're a horrible anti-Zionist. Nowadays, the main attack in Israel is on anyone who is not just against the foundation of Israel, but anyone who says something against the settlements, everything. Right? But so to be on the left is to be willing to relinquish some of the territories. In other places' terms, it's very mild. In Israel now, under Netanyahu, if you are for relinquishing some of the territories, you're a traitor. Right? So, I always had problems teaching this course, and I'm very proud that I managed to teach this course for 20 years and probably raised a group of about 10,000 people who used to flock to my classes. I want to say more things about teaching politics. To teach, I don't know about pessimism in the conflict, you see. I believe that being political is a life commitment. And you have to do your job. Otherwise, what's the meaning of life? One. So to teach and to be politically active is a life commitment in struggle. Saying something about the party. The party, I'm not a member of the Communist Party anymore, but I sit on the editorial of the Communist Party Weekly against the advice of the organization to which I belong. Because I do not accept that sectarianism, under the conditions that we fight in Israel, should be what should direct you. I said we may not agree about the past, we may not agree about the future, but at the moment we are in a fight, and I want to take part in the fight. And that has to do with the notion of politics that I have. And the notion of politics that I have is partly derived from my PhD about the left in student politics that I described before. I used to call it poly-Leninism, right? What do you do if you have 50, 60 different communist parties and each of them is fighting the other? That is unknown phenomenon. Lenin didn't have to fight this kind of situation. In Britain they have, and look at the situation of the party there, of the Communist Party at least. So that's against sectarianism. That's one thing. Education for democracy. In Israel, democracy is dwindling. The High Court is under attack. The left is being blamed for everything that Israel does. In other words, if there is a Corbyn, it's because of me. Right? If people are critical about occupation in Israel, it's because of me. I should feel proud, but I'm sorry, I didn't have much to do about it. Israel is becoming fascist by the day, not only towards Arabs, but towards those who do not agree with the government line. I don't know what will be the outcome of the struggle in Palestine. What happened around us in Iraq and in Syria has changed the conditions of the struggle in general. but it's dynamic, right? I can say that I'm not even frightened if Israel annexes the West Bank and annexes and doesn't give equal rights to the Palestinians. Because then the struggle will continue, and the struggle will be about what Israel tries to claim, but it has never been democratic. So democracy is under attack in Israel, not only to the Arabs or to the Palestinians. Democracy hardly ever existed, to different degrees in the occupied areas, to other degrees within Israel of 48. Democracy is under danger in Israel itself towards Jews as well, who disagree with the settlers. But what it shows that the struggle of the settlers is getting more and more difficult. The bitterness, the fascism, the willingness to actually ostracize everyone else, and not just marginal groups, but the High Court in Israel is under attack, means that the struggle that they are facing is getting harder all the time. So, to fight for education for democracy is not just in educational institutions. It's in your place of work. It's in every association in society. And the struggle becomes more bitter and becomes harder abroad. And we can see this, right? The struggle that the Zionist organizations are conducting now in Britain against Corbyn is because they're afraid that Corbyn is going to come to power. And what then about the relationship between Britain and Israel? Okay, I want to stop before my time. I have a lot more to say, but it's...
Great, thank you.